mentioned that you'd had that song in your head, and when you heard it, it resonated with you. Is there a song that someone else has written that every time you hear it, it gets you?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the song, but a song that.
Yeah. There are a couple that I think of. Never Let Go by Matt and Beth Redman. I just think everything in that song really speaks to, you know, I mean, life is good, but life is hard for all of us, and we all have our own, you know, paradigm of what's hard. And but I think day-to-day living is hard, and that's a song that both recognizes, you know, what we face now, but it's not just forget what's happening now and look at heaven, but it's both and. We have to live, and we want to live faithfully and righteously, but there is that promise of this isn't our eternity. This is not the story of our lives forever. We do have a different story coming. So I love that. Along that same lines is It's Gonna Be Worth It by Rita Springer. That's one that always moves me. And a really old one, Faithful One by Brian Dirksen, and especially knowing the story of their family, which I sang that song for years before knowing where that had been written from, but that's always, it's a keeper.
Just jumping around a little bit now, but this is a question that haunts me is, when do you know a song is finished? I mean, when can you close the book and say, all right, that's it?
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually just reading an article from Dirksen saying that we have a tendency as songwriters to want to canonize our songs immediately. It's done, it's finished, you know, it can never change, it should be distributed for everyone in the world. But I guess to me the answer is, it really is helpful to get a couple people's perspective, and it doesn't mean you have to take every piece of advice. There is ownership that we have of the songs we write, but you know, if a few people that you respect think that it sounds done, and there's a difference between I don't understand that line, or that's a terrible melody, versus, well, I would say it this way. To me, those are different categories of advice. You know, you would write it that way because you're that songwriter, versus, you know, something that's really a specific, you know, helpful criticism. So again, just, you know, maybe getting some feedback from people you trust. But I think the greatest test of a song being done is how people respond to it, whether it's, you know, in small groups, or you know, whether you're playing out, or if you're leading worship for a church, how your church responds to it. If they do, then it's done for them at least.
I think that's good advice. You've given a lot of good advice today, but do you have anything else that you tell people that ask you, you know, when they want advice about songwriting, that
you know,
share with
not
us?
a lot of people ask me for advice about songwriting, but I think that what I try to remember, and it's hard sometimes, but is that God is big enough to use all of us, and He's made each of us uniquely, and if He's put a gift of worship and of songwriting in us, He's not asking us to be Chris Tomlin or Israel Houghton or Kirk Franklin or whatever. He's made different parts of Himself to come out in each of us, and we need all of us to bring more people into His presence. So I think there's value in learning from other people, and again, in co-writing and group writing. But I guess I do have some friends who are younger songwriters, and just not feeling like they have to sound like so-and-so, or they have to rhyme like so-and-so, or, you know, just kind of finding that unique, what's your voice? How do you say things? And not that it's an excuse to not refine and not do the hard work of editing, but just finding that what comes out of you naturally, because that's going to be worthwhile to someone, and that's valuable in and of itself, and not to lose that in the effort to be good or be published or be, heard on a bigger scale or whatever.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what's next, songwriting-wise?
I don't know.
Were you able to, now that, you put out your own CD a few years ago, now with the worship CD, are you able to kind of set those songs behind and does it feel like you're moving on to a new chapter, or has that always been going on?
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to be happening. I really do feel a lot more, again, that whole, I feel like my songwriting is much more now for the body, where it used to be much more personal and, play at a coffee house kind of songwriting, which I still, totally support and appreciate and sometimes get to do still. But I do think when you write for the body, you can't just hold it as your own and say it's my personal expression. It's worth getting other people involved. So I guess I do hope that I get to do more of that, writing with other people. And, like in some of Michael's songs that we co-wrote, his song was basically done. It just needed, a couple of lines that, so that sort of thing, that's fun to be part of, to know that you made a good song a little bit stronger for the church. So I guess I see more of that. Who knows, with this project, it's an interesting time since Michael, has taken a different position, and Jim's not here anymore. So we'll see, what God has for this record. But songwriting ebbs and flows for me. I had, about 4 years where I didn't write a thing after I got married and had our first child. Wow. So I hope that doesn't happen again. But I do feel like I go through spurts of really, having the time and energy and just space in my brain to have stuff come out, and then I have a couple months go by where nothing happens. So
okay,
that's a really rambling answer, but I hope lots more writing. I do hope. I think that sometimes we sell our churches short in what they can handle creatively. I do believe in simplicity and especially honesty in worship, but I think as far as the musical end of it, people listen to the radio and sing pop songs all the time, which aren't always super easy. So yeah. I do hope that there can be more artistic things done in worship.
Well, it seems like things are getting a little bit more technical with all the Chris Tomlin songs, and compared to the way it used to be. But it's some people are trying to hold it back, and some people aren't. But.
And I do think, with Hillsong United or the Desperation Band, Passion Movement, things like that, there is a generational shift happening. Between boomers and Xers, that there are things that it's just going to happen in the life of the church worldwide, where one generation starts to move into senior leadership and another generation moves into leadership. Their changes will come with that, and you're always trying to reach the unchurched, and so there's an element of hopefully setting the pace of musical creativity with worship music instead of always playing catch up to what's already been put out. But yeah, I think that there's a way to do it where we keep intimacy and we keep honesty in our lyrics, but maybe can branch out a little more artistically in the music.